everybody, welcome to Rocket Lasso Live. It is Wednesday. We've got questions ready to rock, and today's going to be a rapid fire, so we're going to be trying to get to the meat of the question. Somebody said it's going to be all meat, no potatoes, so we're going to be jumping into lots of different questions here. Let's go ahead into the chat and click share screen here. Let's make sure we got our Cinema 4D popped up, and I'm going to go through and start clicking on some links. I'm going to click on this one from Fake Blood. What do we got? Ooh, we got a ziplocked hand. This is from Mate Steinforth from Berlin, Germany. Let's see what we got. Oh, creepy. So yeah, we've got this hand and it's moving around inside of kind of this vacuum form, or like you suck all the pressure out from it. So that's really fun where they got that hand going. I think we could totally make something like this. So we're going to do a very simple version of it, especially for our quick testing purposes. So let's go ahead and jump on into Cinema, and let's see what's the quickest way we can do something along those lines. Maybe we'll make a really quick kind of finger here out of a cube. That'll double for being both low poly and really quick to make. So my thought here is, what if we make a cube, and I'm going to scoot the cube over, and we'll put it inside the null. And if I were to copy that null into this cube again, we could scoot that forward. Now we have a second finger. And if we want a third joint, we could do that again. And now, cool. Now let's make a cube. This will be the palm. We got a nice little robot hand, T for scale. And we're just going to give it 3 fingers like that. A little big. Cool. So this will be 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to go ahead and copy that. You know what? This is supposed to be a supered wrap. Well, I guess we'll just still do 3. And then here. And we'll put this one over here as the thumb. Yep. T for scale. Scale that down. And then maybe grab the cubes. Make it a little bit longer, a little bit fatter. Sorry for those flashes. There's a video card thing that happens with Cinema sometimes. Not sure what's going on. Okay, that should be good enough. We can put all of these into a single hierarchy here. So make a null, select everything, put it as a child of null, and then we can just go and record some keyframes. I think if I select all of the nulls, which are what are going to be animated here, then I should be able to click on, let's see, how do we do this? Let's go to coordinates. I'm going to go to rotation. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say animation, and I'm going to say add keyframe selection. So all I'm doing is saying, whenever these change, I want them to record. So we're going to just kind of randomize the animation here a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off position and rotation and parameters. And right now it's just rotation. I'm going to say I want to auto keyframe. And let's right away record a keyframe at the frame 0, and let's just go up to frame 90. I'm also going to record the same thing. So it's going to start and end the same way. But now if we go to, let's say, frame 15, if I make any changes, if I hit R for rotate and I start making changes, these should automatically be getting recorded. So I'm only keyframing on the nulls here. Let's go ahead and grab that one. Let's maybe even rotate it out a little bit. Let's grab this one. Rotate it out, and you can see as soon as I grab this and rotate, you can see that the parameter gets keyframed. We'll bend that one just a little bit like that. We'll grab the thumb. Let's do a little something there, not too much. I'm thinking bend that one down. Maybe this one can tilt in a little bit. Cool. So that is recorded, and now we can fast forward to another time, and you see it's already transitioning back, but let's go ahead and let's make a fist out of this thing. So I'm going to grab all 3 of these. I should be able to increase our value and really bend these in. And then I'm going to grab just the first ones because those went too far. And let's pull that back a little bit like that. Cool. In fact, you know what? The tip there was a little far for me. Straighten those back out. There we go. I like that. And we'll grab the thumb and let's give that some rotation as well. Cool. So that becomes that. I do want this to be recorded, so I'll record a keyframe there. And let's fast forward back. I mean, honestly, it just straightens out. So this is not a good animation, obviously. But it should do something for us. Why don't I go ahead and just scoot these out? So, oops, shouldn't do that. I should make sure I have everything selected. And now I can scoot these keyframes around a little bit better. Just spread them out a little bit more evenly. So my thought here is, I'm not entirely sure it will work, but if we go and we make a floor, we move the floor down. Let's go ahead and make a color so we can see our hand a little bit better. Let's name it hand. and we'll turn on some SSAO. Let's go ahead and turn off our auto keyframes because we don't want to accidentally record something. And let's also go ahead and give this a quick save because we need to do some dynamics and I don't want it to crash. So scene files, let's go ahead and make number 1A hand dynamic in a bag. That's pretty descriptive. Now, if we right-click, I'm going to right-click on the hand, and let's add a simulation rigid body tag. I'm going to copy that onto the floor as well. Now, with this rigid body tag, I'm going to go ahead and say that the collision should be a moving mesh, but I'm going to say it should inherit the tag. But I think I'm going to say inherit, and I'm going to say compound collision shape. So I think it's always going to be looking at the entire shape as being a dynamic object. I'm not 100%, but my hope is that this will fall to the, yeah, okay, cool, it is working. You see it's falling to the ground, and it's behaving dynamically. So yeah, it's on the ground and it is now moving and wiggling. So that's working really well. I think I would like to crank up our dynamic speed. So I'm going to hit Control D, go to Dynamics. Let's go to Time Scaling, set to 200. So the dynamics are calculating twice as fast. It should keep it on the ground a little bit better because the dynamics are running quicker than the hand now. We could add additional things to speed it up or slow it down, but honestly, I think that's working pretty well. Okay, cool. So that is working. I'm going to hit save. Something, I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but something I'm thinking about is putting this into a subdivision surface and only giving it one subdivision so it becomes rounded a little bit. And that should help with putting a bag on top of it for sure. I think that is going to be pretty important. I don't like how rounded it's getting. I want it a little bit round, but not that round. So we have two options. One would be to use a bevel deformer, and the other would be, and this is going to create more polygons, but more polygons is not necessarily a bad thing here because it's just more surfaces for it to calculate against. So it'll be slower, but what am I doing? I want to find a simulate cloth surface, and we put that into the cloth surface first, and then into the subdivision surface. So what's happening is we hit NB. You can see that it's subdividing at one time. In fact, it's rounding it out, so I can put the factor down to 0. And then we subdivide that, and you see we maintain our shape a lot more, and then I like that. Now, the dynamics are still running on this hand, and I'm not sure if this will filter up through the rest of it, and indeed it does. So we can actually still run the dynamics on this lower poly version on the hand, and then it'll subdivide and then subdivide again. So it's actually pretty good. I like that. So yeah, I think that is good enough for that part of the process. Let's go ahead and give it another save. And let's go ahead and try and get the sucker in some sort of bag. So I think it should be pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and create a cube. I'm going to go ahead and make the cube really skinny and hit T for scale and scale it way up. So we're kind of capturing the entire space. Something like that. And let's go ahead and change our display mode to lines for a second so I can see inside of it. And let's go ahead and scoot this over. We don't need it nearly as wide. Let's view it from the top. Actually, I mean, if we were looking at the reference a little bit more tightly, then we could have the bag be a little bit bigger. Cool. Let's go ahead and get some proper subdivisions going here. Let's go to X and go click, 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 click. I guess X is not the one we can see right now. Oh, that's odd. From the top view. The top view must be from isoparms, so we weren't seeing it. So I think I want one subdivision on the height, and let's do a couple extra here. I want to keep it pretty light because obviously we are live streaming. And right now I'm just trying to make these all pretty square. So you see these are pretty dang square. They're all pretty evenly sized. So with that being the case, I think, well, there might be a couple extra steps actually, because this might really vacuum form really harshly on the edges. And that might go against what we were seeing. So we might, I'm not sure. There's a couple different things we might need to test here. I'm going to make a copy of our cube, which is actually our bag, which is in case I need to go back and change subdivisions. But let's go ahead and add a Cinema 4D soft body tag. And with soft body tag, let's go ahead and put, it's already soft body. So let's just hit play for now and see what happens. Okay, it's not horrible. Are we passing through it in the beginning? The bottom there might be a little close to colliding, so I'm going to give that a little bit of space. Hit play. You see it's inside, but it does kind of escape it a little bit there. Definitely a lot of things we can do to fix this. So the very first thing we can do would be, I think I'm inclined to give this a little bit of a margin. If we go to our hand, I can say that the hand should have a size increment. And actually, I'm going to intentionally go overboard here in the beginning to see if we can see this a little bit better. The idea being is as the finger is pushing up into it, I want it to have a bunch of extra space. I want it to not collide directly with the surface. It's almost like we're expanding the mesh overall, everywhere, so that it's, yeah, I think that's working. You can see where right here, yeah, see there's a bunch of space in between them. So it just makes it so that's not quite as sharp everywhere. So having done that, let's go ahead and let's see. Let's go ahead and, well, I mean, I guess one of the main things is just going to be really increasing our steps per frame. So we can go ahead and go to Expert. Let's go Control D, go to Dynamics, go to Expert, and then we'll start adding some extra steps per frame. We'll double it up to 10, and that should go way further. But you can still see the fingers poking through the bottom. You know what? Actually, something I just thought of is, remember saying that it'd be good to get the curvature here because if it's really sharp, it's going to have more trouble. But because we're running the dynamics on the low poly version, it's actually not doing that. So I actually probably want to move that up to subdivision surface. We're still pretty low poly, so I'm confident in just hitting play. And there we go. It's rounded. So that's doing okay. It's still passing through the base really quickly. So that's something we probably want to deal with. But at the same time, right now, our bag is not very bendable. Let's go to soft body. And we've got a couple different things. We've got structural, which is how much one of these edges can stretch or compress. But we've also got shear and flexion. And these two I want to drop to significantly lower. I'm going to drop it down to 10 and 10. The reason I'm dropping it down to dropping these two is because it's how it can bend. The flexion is how it bends over this curve, like 1, 2, 3 edges. It's like how much can that edge bend? And then shear is, honestly, shear is just like the Cinema 4D deformer shear. So if you look at this and we shear it, you can see how it is. Let's give it no curvature. So this is allowing a polygon to tilt like this. So that's what shear does. So with both of those lower, essentially it should make it so that this bag is a lot more bendy and it should be able to stretch more. Although we didn't actually let it stretch more. If we do some less structure, then that should be able to stretch more. Still, that finger's escaping quite quickly. That's getting a little, it's getting to a point where I'm kind of hoping it would be working better. We might just have to give it more steps per frame, but we will see. We've also got our damping, which is how much the energy gets drained out from it. I don't want it really wiggly, so I'm pretty inclined to make these be a pretty high damping. So it's going to be sucking the energy out from the system very quickly. And it should calm everything down quite a bit because we don't want the bag like having a bunch of wiggle. It's not encased in jello, although that would be cool. Now, because we did say this was a moving, well, that's the bag. The bag is set to automatic. I'm gonna make sure that is set to a moving mesh as well. I don't think that actually makes a difference there. Yeah, didn't really make much of a difference, but still a little crazy. Okay, so where do we go from here? And somebody was just saying that in the chat too. Good call, Zach. I'm not sure that actually changed too much, but let's go ahead and give ourselves more steps per frame. Command D. Let's go ahead and set up to 25, so we'll slightly more than double it. Let's hit play. We're getting, okay, that's seemingly significantly worse, honestly. So that's too bad. Let's see, what? He's tapping there and it's suddenly exploding away. That's a little... It's a little frustrating. Let's go ahead and do a couple quick tests. First of all, when this is touching the ground, it seems really bouncy. Boom, why is it bouncy? So I'm going to go ahead and tell that to chill out. No bounce. Let's even say no friction. It can freely slide. So, okay, that's really jittery right now. I think with the extra steps per frame, it really is calculating it harshly. But what I'm going to do to chill this out is put in a bunch of damping. So I'm going to say that it's got a bunch of linear and angular damping to suck energy out from just this regular simulation. So let's see, it's still surprisingly bouncy. Let's go ahead and a little bit, or big numbers, it's still really bouncy. Look at that. Boing, boing, boing. Now we did increase the, what do you call it? We did increase the size increment, which we don't need to be quite that high. But this is, that's surprisingly bouncy. Yeah, it's a little surprising. Now, because the mesh is moving, is that stopping it from being able to drain energy? I'm going to really crank this up. Let's say 999. So now it should really be forcing energy out of the system. Stop blinking. So let's see. That did chill it out a lot, but it's still really twitchy there. Boing, 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 boing. It's a moving mesh size increment. I'm just curious if the size increment is what's really making that. No, that doesn't really change much. So it's just this overall shape is getting recalculated every single frame. So I think it just is existing or not, and it's passing through the floor a little bit. Yeah, that's my guess. It's passing through the floor, and it's suddenly making it bounce up a bunch. And that's because we're not running the dynamics on every single individual cube. We're running it on the overall shape. And if we make them collider bodies, no, collider bodies wouldn't work. So they have to be dynamic. If they're dynamic, they have to be connected. So I don't think we can individually make these dynamic. I mean, we could put some really heavy follow position, but that might make it stop jumping so much. I don't know. It's a little funky. So this is weird, but one thought I have is it was working better when we had less steps per frame here. So you see, yeah, there it's just way better because it's less accurate, so it's just working better. Because it's not passing through the floor as much. It's not just working better. But let's go ahead and drain some energy, but not too much, just to slow that down a little bit. And then my thought is let's bake it. Let's bake just this part. So let's cache that object. It should go really quick. And now I should be able to scrub the timeline. You can see that that is our motion. So now that's got absolutely nothing to do with what this bag is calculating. So let's go ahead and make the bag temporarily. We'll add a display tag. Let's turn it on. I'm going to say use lines. We see the wireframe, but we still see the hand. So now that that's happening, it should be kind of ignoring that part. Let's make sure we're not passing through the floor. And let's frame by frame this a little bit. Let's see if we can see exactly what's happening. Same the floor, and then this finger is then hitting it, and it might be pushing it through the ground a little bit, which is making it freak out. Now that's already baked. So one thought I have is what if we take the ground and just move it down a little bit? So now those never quite touch. And okay, well, at least it's not exploding initially, because now with the ground being down a little bit, this bag can go down further, and when the finger bounces, it's not passing through that floor, so the bag isn't being forced through an impossible floor. It's still escaping through the surface of the bag, but that initial one is not. So let's go ahead back to our expert, and now that that one is calculated, let's go ahead and increase our steps per frame and see what happens. You know what? Apologies for, we're supposed to be rapid firing. We've almost spent a half hour on this one, so we're utterly failing on that. I think a lot of the problem here is the same way I was saying, is getting really twitchy and bouncy off of the floor here, because it's recalculating the surface every single frame as if it's a new object, because it's a compound shape. It's doing the same thing with the bag. Like, the bag doesn't know what shape it is because it doesn't have continuity from shape to shape to shape. It's just like, imagine if this was like an OBJ sequence where it's just like disappearing and reappearing every frame. I think that's the way Dynamics is seeing this, and that is throwing me off here. So what do we do? What do we do about that? I mean, I don't want to make these individually dynamic. I don't know. This might just be something we have to abandon here if we're going to be tackling more questions, because it's going to take a lot more time. It's ending up being a little bit more complicated than I thought it would be, because it's being calculated. The entire mesh is being calculated individually, frame by frame. Now, if this was a rig and we were running the rig through a mesh, then the mesh would have continuity per frame. I mean, honestly, you can usually, I don't want to model a hand on top of it. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff we could do. We might have to tackle this again in the future. So whoever asked a question, feel free to ask it again in a future episode, but we're going to move on to another question right now. So yeah, too bad, but there's some limitations in this process that I didn't anticipate. But I think if what I'm saying is accurate, like I said, picture this like an OBJ sequence, and that would just mean that the finger is suddenly passing through the surface, and then the soft body doesn't know what to do with that. That makes sense. I don't want to blame the dynamics for it, because that's just the condition that we're feeding it. So we'd have to almost start the hand again from scratch if we're going to work around that. Anyway, back to the chat. Let's see what we got. Eric, what do you got? A link to Dribble. Why did that one decide to open in Firefox? I'm going to copy the link. Most of the time the links go to Chrome here, but that one decided to open in Firefox. All right, so what do we got? Product design, art for mobile OS from Gleb Kuznetsov, which is a very Russian-y sounding name. All right, what do we got anyway? So we've got a fun and funky marble type thing. Okay, this is fun. And then let's see how this is bending around. Is that something we should be accounting for? Now, I have made some marble renders in the past. In fact, back in the day, me and Chad had tried to work on this big, giant, epic tutorial, and I recorded like 4 hours of content. And then we never made the part 2 of it. But I did get to make some marble stuff. Now, obviously, one of the main things that's happening here is we're ending up inside of a refractive sphere, like inside of a ball of glass. That's where a lot of the fun comes in, where that gets really refractive. But the interesting part here, if we're doing the meat and potatoes, is the way that that shape is bending and twisting around. I'm going to keep this flat because we could make a cylinder, because obviously the reference has some thickness to it. But the part I'm kind of curious about, and honestly I don't have a specific thing in mind to make this work. Usually this video card thing where it's blinking would have stopped by now. It usually does it for the first couple minutes, but yeah, it's still going. Anyway, let's get some deformation going. Now, to a degree, I was wondering, I mean, you could just use some straight up bends. If we layer up some bends, that might actually work pretty well, especially with the way it's randomly twisting around. And then, I don't know, let's just do some quick experimentation here. Let's go ahead and fit the parent. And then if we bend it, oh, that's interesting. I don't think I rotated it, yeah. Let's go ahead and fit the parent, and now it can bend. Now the problem with this bend, yeah, see, this is what I thought might happen, is if we imagine this is inside of a sphere, let's go ahead and turn on icosahedron, and let's go ahead and put another display tag, turn it on to line, so we can see that we're inside of it. When this is bending, it is escaping. Now, if we turn on Y length, that actually doesn't fix anything. It is escaping our overall surface. So that methodology doesn't work. So, but maybe some twists would work. And even the way with what we were looking at, that did maybe look like some twists were what was happening. So let's go ahead and grab this and spin it and put it inside there. And let's fit that to the parent and twist. And there we go. Look at that. That is staying perfectly in the sphere. So, yeah, if that twists this way, and then if we were to make a second twist, and the second twist I'm going to tell it to be on the sphere. I'm going to fit to the parent of the sphere, and then put it back in here. So it's calculating afterward. But if we grab that one and we spin it 90 degrees, and 90 degrees is kind of arbitrary, but between these two twists, I think we can get some really interesting motion. So you can see it's not very clearly a single twist, but as we twist around, we're going to get more and more interesting detail layering up. Now it comes to the very, very specific motion that we were seeing from the other one. I have no idea how to make exactly what they did, because every shape could be completely unique, and maybe one is a twist and one is a bend, or maybe there's some dynamics going on. But as far as getting the overall motion, I think this is getting almost exactly what I was aiming for. Add in some more subdivisions, because as you twist more and more, it's going to like become significantly less detailed. Let's go ahead and put a white disc on there and spin it around some more. Yeah, that twists around really nice. I think if you go too far, it'll eventually sort of break. But I really like the way that is looking overall. And then you go ahead and you take that and we put it into a sphere. I guess we already had a sphere. That one's already going to render, so let's make a new material. We'll just do this in Vanilla Cinema. We'll turn on transparency, turn off color. Under transparency, let's make a glass refraction here. And yeah, we've already got reflection. I'm not going to overthink that. Let's just go ahead and throw that onto the sphere, which should still render. And let's just make this white material in here. Let's just make it a gradient so we see something. Let's go green to blue. Render, and now you get your refraction so that is slowly transitioning from one to another. If we had some nice lighting and everything set up, then I think you would be getting a very, very pleasing shape. Oh, that's interesting. If you grab the twists and I move them, oh, then that escaped. That's weird. I guess when I just moved one and it didn't escape, but maybe it did. Whoa, but look at these cool shapes you're making. But even that, like, imagine if you just, imagine if the question that was asked is like, how do you make this shape? It'd be like, well, maybe we would be like, okay, there are some twists involved, but the idea of it being at precisely this number, at precisely this offset, that is like impossible to guess. So oh, okay, so this one can pass through. That's pretty cool, actually. You see, it's this 1 second twist. So that's what it looks like completely unapplied, and it goes through. It's going to transition it around and eventually stop and have flipped it around 90 degrees. That's pretty cool. I like it. So, in any case, I think that's answering the main part of that question here. So let's go ahead and jump to the next question, everybody. Fancy marble. I'm going to close down Cinema real quick and see if we can get to stop flashing. Let's see, what else did they... I mean, they had lots of stripes, but you mentioned if this was a cylinder and the same twist, and you could just have material on there. It's a bunch of stripes. And then it looks like there's a bunch of, like, sugar cloned onto the surface. Maybe there's some displacement to get these individual lines. And then just get a nice HDR in the overall scene. I think that would pop up and look really nice. So, back to the chat. What do we got? General Moon. Can you do something like this in Cinema 4D without XParticles? Let's see what you got. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, dear. Okay, so I'm assuming this entire thing is just a nice swirling galaxy. Yep, it is. Okay, let's see. Well, the interesting part of this question is without XParticles. You know what? Probably parts of it. I mean, it just goes to like, there's a lot of things if you're willing to spend the time and build the rig that you can do inside of Cinema 4D, which just finished opening. Inside of Cinema 4D that... Let's see. Hey, it's not blinking anymore. Nice. So, yeah, that's interesting. Anyway, so we want... Oh, first of all, I didn't see who made that necessarily. 3D Spiral Galaxy Animation from Zibalba. And the music is from Minecraft. That's very popular these days. It's making a resurgence. Anyway, back to trying to make something like this. One of the main... Well, we're going to be using a whole bunch of MoGraph stuff here. So one of the main things, I'm trying to remember how to do that twist. I can never remember. How to make something spin. I guess you give it, is that a twist deformer with a fall off? Yeah, I think it is actually. So let's see if we can get something working. I'm going to go ahead and make a straight spline with a helix. Oops, that is not a helix. Okay, helix spline. Let's go ahead and give it a start and end radius of 0. Let's go ahead and delete that. And now we can take this and put it into a cloner, and the cloner is radial. Let's go ahead and make, I don't know how many spiral arms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something like that. So I'll put 6. And radius of 0, and let's lay this flat on the ground so we got this nice spiral going around. Cool. So we got that going. That's number 1. Let's go ahead and make our spline longer. I'm going to make it 1,000 long. And something I think might be cool, this might be silly to do, but let's go ahead and I'm going to put a twist deformer in here. So let's go ahead and use a second twist. Actually, am I doing this wrong again already? Because a twist actually on a single level it might work. Twist. Okay, twist, put that on here. And I'm going to say fit to parent. That doesn't work. T for scale. Just encompass the entire thing. And if we twist, okay, the hope was, yes, indeed, it spins. The problem is that the entire thing is spinning. The reason the entire thing is spinning is because we're just one slice through the twist, and the twist is twisting vertically. But now what gets interesting is we go into the fall off, and I can create a spherical field fall off. And if I increase this to 1,000 radius, actually I guess it would be 2,000 radius. Oh, no, it is 1. And then we go to the spherical field here and go to our remapping and give it a full remap. There we go. So now you can see that the fall off is enabling it to spiral on a single layer. So yeah, and even the scale of it doesn't even matter. So visually I like hiding the deformer, and now we could take that and increase the strength, and that's going to control how much it is twisting. Although that's kind of interesting. Look at the way it twists. It's a little bizarre. Interesting. That's a full fall off there. The twist scale, don't think that matters much. I'm going to say unlimited. Oh, not, let's say unlimited. That doesn't change anything. Yeah, that's super weird. That's interesting. And in any case, this is not even a variable. I'm not worried about that part of it. These are surfaces for us to clone onto. And the reason I'm not worried about it is we could easily just make them twist by adding end radius on here and things like that. A million different ways of bending those into shape. So why don't I make a bend? I'll put the bend inside of the helix. Turn off the cloner for a second. Let's tilt this to the side. Let's go ahead and say our favorite fit to parent, and now that can directly bend it the way we want to. What's cool is it's pivoting from the 0 point. So now that that is happening, we can go ahead and start cloning. What I would like to do, I think, if we're going to have this render quick, relatively quick, is let's go ahead and create a light, and I'm going to make the light have no illumination, but it's going to have visible light. And in fact, I think visible, the better way here is going to be doing volumetric. I'm going to say I want a volumetric fall off here. Let's go ahead to our visibility. I'm going to set the radius down to 1, and I'm going to make another cloner. And, oh man, there's so many different things we can do here. I've got a lot of different variables in my head right now. If we make this a radius of 1,000, and then we give it a skinnier height of, let's say, 10, you can see we've got a single light that is kind of stretched out. And if I hit render, we should just be getting this visible light. So that's all well and good. I'm going to brighten it up quite a bit. Let's say 200. And we should be able to render, and we should be able to see that kind of blown out, but that won't be that way for long. So let's go ahead and make a new material. I'm going to apply it directly to the light. And inside of the material, let's go ahead into our transparency channel. We could use alpha, but we'll be using some color. If you want color, you have to use transparency. So inside of the transparency layer, let's go ahead and make a noise. And well, let's go into the noise and get something. No, I will immediately put this into a colorizer. And in the colorizer, I'm going to say I want this to go from black to white. And now we've just got this little sliver in between. And wherever we put this, we're going to see this nice little sliver of lighter color. And wherever that lighter color is where the visibility should show up. So if I hit render, you're going to see that we now have a noise pattern. Let's go ahead and scale this way up. So I'm going to add an extra 0 on there, make it 10 times bigger. There we go. Now you can see we've got some noise scaling overall. That's pretty good, actually, already. Let's go ahead and cut that into about half. Hit render, and there we go. Nice noise pattern falling off overall on this shape. Looking pretty cool. Where things start getting interesting is the way we can start combining this. If I put that entire colorizer into a layer shader, let's go ahead and play around with some proximals. I'm going to go Effect, and let's say Proximal. And now we've got this proximal that we can feed something. I want to feed in our cloner. I'm going to pull out this null, and let's put the entire thing into a connect object. I'm going to put the connect into the objects, and let's go ahead and say that this should be seeing the vertices. So just by doing that, let's hit render and see what we see. Not much. I'm going to go ahead and say include sub-objects. Doesn't like that. And I'm pretty sure if I turn on these, that's not going to do anything. Okay, so it's not liking the connect object. It's possible that this is not reading as a spline. So I'm going to go ahead and put this into a spline mask and try feeding the spline mask instead of the connect. And hit render. And still not quite working. A little surprising there. I'm going to go ahead and make this editable so we get a final spline. I'm going to copy that, hit undo, and then paste the spline. We turn everything off, and now we just have this one finalized spline. Now we should see that there's a lot of points on this spline. So let's go ahead and try dragging that in directly. We'll see if that acknowledges it. Now it did acknowledge it, so there's something there it didn't like. I'm almost inclined to, I want to do this as a rapid fire. Normally I would want to spend some time and figure out why this procedural hierarchy is not acknowledging. There might be a way to do it, might not, but let's move forward this way. Now, having done this, we've got this nice fall off. It's all combined. So once again, I'm trying to do the somewhat simple version here. Right now it's adding, but we could say lighten. And now you see we're going to get a nicer fall off on those. So those are falling off nicely. And now, though this proximal, if I say a multiply, then that noise can only show up where these arms are. So now you can see that we get these arms translating through, and that's working pretty well. Let's go ahead into our colorizer. I'm going to make this noise smaller, so not too much smaller, say 400. But I also want it to be skinnier on Y, so I'm going to put that down to 50%. So now it should be stretched a little bit more horizontally there. And I like the way that looks. Now, we're getting a little bit more detailed here, but you're going to see that we're getting some problems here. We're getting these nasty lines going on. And I'm not going to go into exactly the mechanical reason why this is happening, but this is pretty easy to fix. If you go inside of your light and you go to visibility, there's a setting called sample distance. And if we start shrinking this, it's going to start essentially adding resolution. So as I did that, you see we still get a couple of these little lines, but overall it's looking a lot better. So if we drop that down to 5, then it's going to look even better again. But you are instantly seeing it is taking a lot longer for that to render, but those lines are indeed now gone. So a little something to keep in mind there. Let's go ahead and zoom out again here and take a look at what we've got overall. We got this nice little wiggly lines traveling, filling up this different space. And I think you can see where we'd be able to start combining these and doing some interesting things. Like I could combine these, make these a little bit sharper so that this transitional line, there's less of it. And now we're just going to see these smaller wisps going. That's pretty cool. So yeah, that's looking nice. If we want to, let's go, oops, didn't mean to close that. If we wanted to, we could go back in here. We got our proximal. We could set this back to add. So now they're going to be a stronger strength going down all the individual arms. And then we've got different fall offs here. We could set that to a smooth fall off. Right now it's linear. I think it's looking fine as linear. Now I did want to go into that. We can go into our colorizer here. And these can be colorized. So I could say that that's white, but let's say that this transitions into a nice bright teal color. And I'm going to steal that on both sides. So now we can transition from white to the teal to the black. And now we're going to introduce this color into it. So we have the ability to add color. And we could add additional lights and all sorts of things in there to start getting extra little wisps and nebulas. And this is just one noise. Think of all the different noise types we put in. Let's put in a Naki. Now it's automatically more detailed. It's probably going to look noisier. But yeah, look at this cool, that's really nice looking. And because it's a more detailed noise, I'm going to go ahead and more than double the scale of it. So now we're going to be not getting that nice smooth pattern as much, but we still get this really nice nebula-esque pattern going. So yeah, so that's a pretty good start there overall. And then, I mean, I don't want to spend too much longer on this one. Let's go ahead and just go Galaxy. So then it starts going to little things like let's make a light and let's make it a no illumination. Let's make it visible and we're going to make it really tiny. So let's go ahead and set this down to like 10. And then we can grab a MoGraph cloner, put that into the light, put that and say it's going to clone onto an object. The object is going to be the spline that we made. Now we're cloning those on, and we could increase the count. We could increase distance. There's a lot of different ways we could control the way it's creating more or less of those clones. Go ahead and grab that. Let's go ahead and grab a random effector, and we can automatically add some nice random position on there. We could go ahead and add some random scale on there. Let's do uniform scale. I'm going to go up 0.9, so it should be able to go almost down to 0 and almost double the original scale. So now you can see we're getting these nice little individual stars effectively popping up. Now, even having done that, something that might be kind of fun is inside of cinema, you can get those little twinkles going. And we could get these falling off. Sorry, a little scattered. A lot of different fun details you can put on this. If we just make a plane effector, we could say that we want this plane effector to be controlling. Let's just say that we're using the effector color. That's not true. I want to use the field's color to affect the color. So now we can give it a field of a fall off. And now we can increase that size, zoom. And now we have our transition as well, which is awesome. So we can shrink that in. And now you can see how these are getting colorized. So they're blue in the middle and they're fading out. No, they're going brighter to white on the edge. But what's cool is we can go to color remap here. I can change this to a gradient. And now we have direct control over the color that the lights are. And right now it's just going from white in the middle to black on the edge, which is actually what I wanted. So they're going to be nice and bright in the center of the galaxy. And as they get near the edge, they're going to be getting dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, to the point where they should be fading out to pretty much 0. They seem to be getting darker, although it's a little difficult to tell. We are feeding through the color, and we are using the field's color. We might need to use the alpha strength on that, although that seems to have made it less obvious. I'm going to turn off the galaxy. Let's just call it the volume for now, so we get really quick feedback. And the field color, I don't know, it seemed to... The alpha seemed to make it less. Yeah, they are definitely fading out. I'm just inclined to make them a lot brighter. So like go like 200% so they become really bright. And I want them to fade out more, so we just have to make sure that in the fall off, right now it's just this nice smooth gradient, but we could go and change this to something like a curve. And now we could really emphasize the dark part of them, so they only get really bright in the middle and they can fade off darker. So yeah, there we go. We have very nice direct control over the way that those are being applied. And it's really cool that we have this spline and gradient, so we can remap the way those are falling off. So that is pretty great. And we could, add variation, randomness. There's a lot of different things, like inside this plane. In fact, we're just using fall off, so I could go and grab a random field here. I want that to affect the color. And even that's kind of fun. We're adding in all these colors. I'm going to say overlay. And yeah, well, okay, whatever. Let's go ahead and add in a little bit of color into that. That's not what I was going for, but yeah, now we got color. I was just going to make some brighter and darker, but I kind of like adding some color in there even more. Let's see if this will work, though. I haven't done this in a while. Let's go ahead into our light, and we can turn on the lens. When's the last time you turned on the lens? Now, we don't actually want a reflex. What we do want is a glow. Yeah, we can go and make them yourself really specifically, but let's just go ahead and turn on some of these presets and see if we get a nice looking one. In fact, I'm just going to scroll through and find something really distinct. So we got all these different ones. There we go. That one's pretty good. Blue one. So we could go into edit and change all these. And the only thing I'd probably want to do is remove the color. And now if we hit render, it won't happen right away, but you see that we get the lens flare as a post effect. Obviously, that's cartoonishly huge. So let's go ahead to the aspect ratio. Actually, it's not aspect ratio. It's the overall scale, I would think. Here's our scale. Let's set the scale down to 10%. Hit render. Okay, there we go. A little bit better. Smaller now. Let's say 2%. And now those are getting smaller still. Now we could go to, unfortunately you can't see it unless you scale it back up, but we know 2% is pretty good. So if we go back into our edit here, we've got all these different elements, and this one element here is really bright. It's hard to tell what's doing what. Wait, don't want to spend too long on these. I'm just going to scroll through and find the most distinct kind of lined one. Because all these have a lot of glow. There we go. That's not much, but if we set that back down to 2, yeah, there we go. Let's go up to 4. There we go. See, you get these little twinkles on them. If we had different lines, spend more time on that, you could get those all doing their own individual thing. And I think it would start looking pretty good. So I'm going to tell this spherical to chill out a little bit. Those can still be up a little. Yeah, it twinkles all the way down. Turn on the volume again. Let that render. Now we're going to have these individual lights. Remember, the twinkles don't turn on until the post effect, so it has to render the entire image. And then at the very end, it goes bink, and then cranks them on top of everything else. These are looking a little overpowered. We got to keep in mind that they're on top of the light. So we could chill our overall light back down to 200 and probably go to our lens. And right now we have a brightness. Set that down to maybe 50%. Give this another quick save. Let's take a glance at our reference. And, oh, I mean, there's a really bright one in the middle. We got all these individual stars. They got lots of different colors. There's lots of nice little colors throughout this nebula. Something I had been going to do was create a series of different lights to run it through, but I thought it would be render quicker if we had a single one, which I think it is. And yeah, these are a little bit more chilled out. But having said all that, we've got all the, we've got these spiral arms going. By the way, this is falling off a lot towards the edge because of the light. This overall light itself, if we go to visibility, you can see that it has a fall off. So it has a regular fall off and this fall off angle. If we just turn that off, actually, it should be super bright all the way to the edge. Yeah, so this is going to be full power all the way to the tip of the arm, and you see that's going to be like cartoonishly bright. But that's actually not... I would do something like that, because then I would put a second big fall off on it via a proximal, and then have the proximal multiply it as it gets near the edge. The only sad thing, I really wish that, and maybe in the new node-based materials, there's a way to do this, but the proximal is only ever one radius, so we can't make it get skinnier as it gets near the edge. So that part's a little frustrating. And I don't know if making a series of different lights that got smaller near the edge, if that would improve or not. But in any case, the last thing I will mention here is if we did want to get different colors inside of there, we can go back inside here. Right now we're just applying the color in our overall noise. It's just being applied directly. But we could overlay any kind of noise that we want to anywhere. We can make a second noise. Let's go ahead and make this one, once again, pretty skinny vertically. Let's make it pretty big overall. Let's give it a pretty heavy contrast. And let's go ahead and make it be yellowish and dark bluish. So we get these two different colors. If we take that and overlay on top of everything, then that's going to also affect the color. So now we get different bits of color in different areas. Obviously, I like this better with the fall off on there. Let's turn the fall off back on. In fact, we have two different fall offs. We could make this lower go, this number go lower, and that'll fade off, but it should be a little stronger as it nears the edge. That's a little better. There we go, and we get the twinkles turning on afterward. And you know, it's not horrible to render. It's doing quite all right. There's different fall offs that we could give these arms so they fade off better, or do different clones throughout different parts. You can really layer up a lot of different things. I mean, we could copy that entire volume, just call it light again. And this one could have a bunch of fall off, and then this one is no longer a volume, so let's just make it pretty dim. And let's give it a yellow-green color here. And now this should just be overall, let's remove that material, and then just make it a visible light. There we go. That's what I wanted. And now you can see we just got this little soft glow that's going and traveling all this additional distance. Let's make a duplicate of that, and now let's make this one pretty bright. And in fact, the color's probably fine, but under visibility, let's go ahead and make this even, so it's just kind of round, and we'll shrink this one up quite a bit. And now this one will be this big bright glow in the center of it, so you're going to feel that nice ambient glow. And then, of course, there's things like making more clones. Like we have extra clones in this spiral, and that makes sense. And we could go ahead and make even more of those. Let's go ahead and go up to 55, so we got lots there. But let's go ahead and duplicate that entire light object here, and then this one I'm going to set it to, let's just do a grid array, and I'm going to make it only a height of 1, and let's increase our grid to 1,000, 1,000, so that's nice and big, kind of eating up the entire thing. Let's go ahead and make more, a whole bunch. 17 by 17 should fill it up quite a bit, and I guess this is more along the lines of 2,000, 2,000, so now you see we got a bunch of them. Change our form to be a sphere or a cylinder, and that's interesting. Does the sphere have a size? Where did that, form of a sphere? Oh, Cylinder? Okay, cylinder was better. It did that because of the Y was so skinny, so it was a really skinny sphere, so it didn't know what to do with it. Maybe it just has to make it the... Can't scale the sphere, so it's just perfect sphere on the small size. So you do something like that, now you get all these extra stars traveling throughout the entire thing, but then I would want these to be a lot dimmer because those are not supposed to be in the middle of the galaxy anywhere, so you just get those extra ones filling in the space. Let's go ahead and turn on the original, so those should be there and be brighter in general. So now you can start filling up your additional space in the void around it. And then everything will still get the twinkle. So yeah, it's taking these things and layering and layering and layering. And I mean, what's crazy is everything I'm doing right here, we could have done in like Cinema 4D version 8. So that part of it's kind of crazy and fun. The fall off on the proximal is annoying me a little bit, but maybe if we did smooth and lighten, that would go a long way. There's also, let's see, which one's going to have the least on the outside? Square, yeah, square or smooth. We'll just leave it on smooth. Yeah, oh, there we go. I like that a lot better already. See how smooth it is on the edge. So I'd probably make that a little bit fatter now. Grab these arms and increase the end distance. So that double might be too much, but let's see. No, that's way better. Look at that. Gorgeous. Look at our galaxy. Look at it shine. I'd probably take, I mean, it's just, you just keep going and going. Brighten up that overall disc. This one's looking pretty good, but I'd make it a little bit brighter. Maybe pull it a little bit more into the green range. And that we will wrap this one up. So put your questions back in again, if not, or if you have another question. And yeah, look at that. Pretty fun, all in vanilla cinema. And then, I mean, just to throw it out there, like these spiral arms could be spinning. The entire volume could be spinning with it, and that would be important to move it because the way this material is applied is important. But keep in mind that we could also have, we could just go inside the noise here, inside its one singular noise, and we could give that some speed. And you want it to be probably pretty slow. I'm going to say 0.5 just so we see it quickly. But that little bit of animation speed is going to make it so those are transitioning. And then, I mean, I guess I'll just make a null, select all, put it into the null, and then we can keyframe that. So at the time of 0, H, let's record H, so there, we'll go jump here. I mean, we can do 360, it's going to be super fast. So let's just do 90 degrees, and then let's select those keyframes and make them linear because they should not be accelerating or decelerating. So now it's going to do that. I mean, that's still cartoonishly fast. So let's just have it go 10 degrees. Boom. Just that little bit of speed. That's a little bit better. And give it a save, render, output, all frames, half the resolution. And let's make it square. Appropriate for Instagram. Let's go pretty close to it. And then there's a galaxy. So would that be the ultimate and long lens? Ooh, yeah, let's do that. Yeah, and even here we can be kind of among some of them. Let's see what it looks like as a still. Ooh. All right, I like it. Let's move up a little closer to the center. Save again. I want to brighten up that disc a little bit more still. Make that a little more yellow. Make that a little bit brighter. Another quick test. Yeah. And then we'd want a big star field in the background and whatnot. I might even tilt this up a little bit so we see a little bit more of that, but still be pretty low. Cool. Save. Render the picture viewer. And yeah, this was actually more fun than I thought it would be. I thought that because we're not using too much in the way of advanced techniques. In fact, we even kind of killed off all of the fancy cloner stuff we were doing in the beginning because it wasn't feeding into the proximal properly. But yeah, in the end, that's working pretty well. It's amazing what you can get away with just some lights in Cinema 4D. I'm going to check the chat. Let's see what you guys are saying while this is rendering a little bit. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Joka, welcome. Stans, hello. Dan, what's going on? Definitely a long lens. I can see everyone's house from here, yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised the noise looks so nice. This was considering I just essentially grabbed a random noise and overlaid it by a random color. It's actually looking shockingly nice. But you know what? Naki is it's just the best. It's just the best organic looking noise. It's so good for so many things. You invert it, it looks cool. You leave it like that, it looks cool. Um, we get even like even this we are cloning a bunch of stars here, and then we get the nice lens flare. But even having done that, we could have had it so that the volumetric light could have also had little proximal stars being generated within the light field. Would have also worked. I mean, what's goofy, but technically would have been totally possible. Is even though right here we've got the spiral arm light, and then these tiny little lights, and then this one big flat disc of light, and then we've got this glow in the middle. That could have all technically been a single light, and we could have just been coloring it with a series of proximals and colorizers inside of the shader. It would have been a completely valid, although possibly ludicrous way of going about creating it. Look at that. Like the speed of my noise here is obviously way too high. And every time it goes to process next frame, it's horribly hicking up, doing a big old hiccup here. But yeah, so I probably want to make the speed like a fifth of the speed, if that, and then letting that spiral around. And obviously we'd want some nice galaxy stuff in the distance and more stars everywhere. But yeah, the basic rig is all here, so it's pretty cool. I don't know, it's kind of making me want to make a tutorial just on doing this type of technique because it's so simple in old school cinema. Although cloners do make it nice to be able to make all these stars. And we're using all these lights, but we're not casting any shadows. So even that part is crazy. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. We might let this render a little bit, but I don't know. I guess just for fun, I want to eat up more of the view with our camera. Also, it's important to remember that it's square, so we're really seeing more like something like this. So I do something like that, have this be more up in the air like that. I like it, and then go into the noise and make that go way, way slower. I mean, honestly, 1/5 of the speed is still probably way too fast, but I'll leave it that way. Save, render, and back into the chat. Oh, yeah. I can't wait for Naki to be in Redshift as well. I need my Cinema 4D noises. I need them. There we go. That's better. Better framing overall. A nice little bright light. Anyway, yeah, so there's a bunch of cool effects in the cinema renderer. It's just that they're so destructive, and you can't see what they're doing until it's finished an entire frame. But you know, we do have things like the highlights. Highlights might be able to add these little bright points on the stars, even without having to do the lens effects. And there's object glow, which maybe could be cool here. I don't know. We could be applying fog. There's a lot of different things we could layer up and do that might be interesting. But Meeks is asking about modeling a mushroom. That could be interesting. We haven't done any modeling today yet. Andrew is linking to something he made, which is a kinetic sculpture. Curious how I might approach it. I'm feeling more like a mushroom right now. Let's see what you got. It's a direct link to Imager, which is probably just a photo of a funky mushroom. That's not the craziest mushroom. It's that's not that intriguing to me, I gotta say. Because a lot of what is going to make this look nice is just going to be the texturing, and I don't want to get into texturing because that immediately is a big time sink, and we're not getting to half the questions I wanted to today. Is there anything? I'm trying to think if there's anything worthy of special attention here. I mean, this is a really good candidate for volume, the volume builder workflow, to model out that way, because it'd be really easy to kind of blob all these things into each other. And it's, at the end of the day, it's almost got a single uniform texture applied to the whole thing. So so that part would be pretty, yeah, generically straightforward. Yeah, I'm not really feeling much there. Let's see what else we got. Instagram. Whoa, weird overlap. Tavo Studio. I feel like we've looked at one of those before. He is doing, it seems to be a, did you call on a specific time? Fried, yeah, you got photo 1, photo 2. Looks like a bunch of different renders of it from different angles. Let's see, number 9. Yeah, look at these melts and everything. I do like the melts. So the melting part is the intriguing part here. So they use this to model out a liquidy-esque number 7. And to my eye, the interesting part here is these melty effects. I'm trying to think of... Are they calling out specifically any particular way they did it? They're not. I got a lot of different possible ways popping into my head. I'm trying to think of what the... Because some of this could be really intentional. I mean, first of all, there's a million different things. One would be you just straight up model it. The other would be you kind of build a fairly simple rig that's kind of going to give you something and you randomize through until you get something useful. The other would be an entire rig that's animating, so that this would be like melting in process. That would be fairly time consuming, but I think totally doable. I'm trying to think of what the approach would be most intriguing for what we're kind of doing today. I do love the stringiness. That's pretty cool. I wonder, I'm trying to think of... Trying to think of what I would actually want to do here. Something I just kind of have a visual in my head right now that I kind of want to try, which might not be exactly that, but I think it's along the lines of it. I'm going to stop this from rendering. I'll probably finish a render of it later. Let's see what we got. Yeah, the slower, look at the slower, the 0.5 is looking way better there. And I'd probably even want to like the Naki is looking great, but I probably want to add a couple extra octaves to sharpen it up a little bit, or overlay another smaller, more detailed noise on top of it so that you get more detail in here. But the softness is pretty cool by itself. In any case, that was really fun for being a simple question. I like the result. So let's go ahead and let's get some melty stuff. Now they had stuff melting over the spheres. I don't like. I don't think the technique I'm going to do is very similar to what they did. So I'm going to be okay using a couple spheres, and I do want to see the way they overlap on the sphere. So I'm going to go ahead and give myself permission here to try and make this from some spheres. I'm going to make one sphere. Let's go ahead and make a bunch of clones. 24. 25. Ooh, didn't mean to click that. MoGraph, random. Give it that little bit of randomness. Let's go ahead and give it a bunch of random scale. Uniform scale, absolute scale, -0.75. And now we can go add a good old-fashioned rigid body and give it really high follow position and lots of damping. Hit play. Bloop. Whoa. Okay. Too much follow position. Too much. Bink. Still kind of twitchy, but that's okay. In fact, I'm going to make a second cloner, and then this one, I'm going to make them all pretty tiny. And it's going to solve the random effector applied, but I'm going to make the random effector have way less effect on it so that we get a lot more small ones. Bloop. Not that you can tell. Let's go ahead and make more. Wow, those really are hiding. Let's go ahead and put more randomness in them. A little better. Make it a little bigger. Bloop. All right, that's better. Too many now, though. Blink. Good enough. Good enough, I say. So I think we're going to want something pretty low poly, so I'm going to change this to an icosahedron. Let's go ahead and drop the poly count down. So we just got something kind of round. Looks like it broke it. I super broke it. Oh, I dropped the radius down somehow. I misclicked. Oopsie. Boom, 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 boom. I want it just there. That's what I want. Bloop. And I might subdivision surface it, but that is fine. I'm going to make a connect object. Put these into the connect. And I have to run it again. Bloop. And then I'm just going to make that editable. Copy, undo, undo, undo. Now we have the original. Paste in the new one. Hide all the clones. Turn off the entire hierarchy. Okay, so now we got a piece of geometry. So my thought is, this might be a little bit weird, but it could be kind of cool. First of all, I'm going to curate this a little bit. Let's go ahead and delete certain ones of these that I think are not adding a lot to what we're doing. Delete that one. Let's delete that one. What I'm doing here is just selecting it and hitting UW and delete. And there we go. I'm liking that. I'm liking giving these a little bit more space to breathe. It's kind of fun. Get rid of a couple of these. Yeah, I like this cavity in here. That's neat. If these aren't relevant, I'm going to get rid of them. Load geometry to make everything calculate quicker. Yeah, just making this a little bit more sculpted. A little bit more of a form to it. Don't make cloners editable too often, so you don't get these kind of options. That, and then I'll be done. There. Okay, that is our sculpted shape. I like it. So what is next? Next up is saving it. Let's go ahead and save it as number 4. I'm just going to call it Melty. All right, so I don't know if this will work, but my thought is, what if we clone an arc? Maybe a circle, but I'm going to do an arc. Maybe a circle. Okay, let's do a circle. I'm going to make a circle. I'm going to T for scale. Scale that way down. And we're going to add a lot of variation on here. But let's go ahead and clone a circle. And what is it going to clone onto? It's going to clone onto an object. The object is going to be this whole crazy thing. It's going to clone onto the surface. That is fine. Let's make a whole bunch of clones. Yeah, I'm already digging the idea here. So we're cloning into the surface. We've got our sphere. I need it to be rotated like that, 90 degrees on P. So now, if I were to make the sphere smaller, you see that we got all these little arcs cloning onto it. So that is what I'm going for there. And, oh, there's going to be some challenges here. Because if they're not all passing through the same point, it's not going to be easy to grab them. Let's just plow on through, see what happens. So we got a bunch of clones. Let's go ahead and make... Oh, I'm going to make a random vector. So we can get some different scales. Not position, but yes, scale, uniform scale. And let's make them bigger and smaller. So 0.66 is fine. Nice big ones, some nice small ones. Cool. So here's where the challenge is actually going to come in. If I were to feed this entire thing into a connect object to make that editable, you're going to see we're going to get something like this, which is pretty much exactly what I want. And then, so yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to make that editable and copy it, undo, so we have the entire rig again, paste again. So now we've essentially got this and this. I'm copying them into a new scene so we can work from it, but we still have the old one if we want to go back to the parts. B. Okay, so here's the part I'm not sure. How do I select all the points that are inside of the spheres or outside of the spheres? That's the part I don't know. Unless we can Boolean them out. Is there any way to do that? Is there any way to select all the points inside of a volume? Don't think there is. If I just use my regular selection tool and we say only visible elements, we make it really big, I still think that this will pass through. So if I do that, oh, maybe not. Maybe not. All right, well, let's give this a try. It might not be perfect, but it's a technique I don't think has to be perfect. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. We're just going to rotate a couple of times and keep selecting everything. We should be constantly getting a couple extra points. If we don't get them all perfectly, then we don't get them all perfectly. Don't know if this is working, but if we select our connect and I invert my selection UI, oh, look at that. It's totally sort of working, so that's cool. Now you see that we definitely missed some points. In fact, we did miss some points, and I want to try and get some of them. So I'm going to select them all again. Oops, and let's stop it. Select. There we go. I'm just going to make sure we're seeing this inside a little bit better, because those were the ones we seem to have blatantly missed a bit. Cool. All right, so now if we deselect that, we get this. I'm going to go ahead and make a duplicate of it again. And now I'm going to invert UI, hit delete. And we're going to say, don't close the spline. And I think that means all the holes are in the inside. No, it does not mean that. How do I make that the first point? I'm going to hit undo. They're back. Can I right click and say set first point? Oh yeah, I need to shrink this by 1. So I'm going to hit UK to shrink by 1. Maybe. I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not. Undo. That's why we're making copies of it. I'm not entirely sure where certain things need to be. So I'm going to right click and say set first point. And I think that just means one of the points on the inside is going to be the one that's the first point, but that's actually fine. If I hit delete and now hit don't close the spline, I think that does mean that where they're closed is inside somewhere. So now the idea is if I select all my points and hit UK and hit UI, I've now got the points that are really close to piercing in through the center, working shockingly well. So having done that, I think we can go ahead and add a spline dynamics or a hair dynamics. Let's go hair tag, and I'm going to say spline dynamics. I'm going to go to properties. I'm going to say fixed, and now none of those can move. So a basic thing would be, I'm going to hit save again. I should be able to play, and all those are going to droop. So that's good. That's a good start. I'm going to give it a bunch of drag. Let's say 90% drag. Let's give it a lot of stiffness. And hit play. Let's see. They're going to slowly droop down. Better. Let's give ourselves some more frames. And now, the important part is let's go ahead and make this a collider body. It's still pretty low poly. So let's go ahead to hair tags. I'm going to say hair collider. Forces. Let's just see what this does by default. I'm going to hit 1 frame forward because I'm not sure. It's pretty low poly, but I'm going to hit, I don't want it to go crazy. I want to make sure it's still calculating. It seems safe, so we haven't lost much if I crash. So hit play. Okay, it is going, but going real slow. So those should collide. I'm going to pull off some of the drag here because we don't need it running up that slow. Let's say 35%. Play. It's going to take just as long to play, but it should take less frames to get to kind of where we're going. Now, to tell you the truth, I think it might be kind of cool is if these weren't even necessarily all drooped down perfectly. I kind of like the idea of them, some of them be kind of swirly around. But let's just let this play through a little bit and see what we end up with. Yeah, the collisions are definitely working. Unfortunately, I think most of them are going to be drooping down pretty far. Like, I'd love if we had some more draped across certain surfaces. And I guess we might be able to do that, honestly. I kind of like the idea. I'm going to rewind. Let's see. First of all, forces, gravity, cache, advanced. Okay, steps. I'm going to see if we can drop the steps down to 1 to make it calculate quicker. And then let's grab our surface here, and I'm going to give it 0 bounce and 200% friction, which apparently 100 is as high as it can go. There is no friction here, so we won't worry about that. And then The one thing I want to make sure is if I don't want to play through the entire simulation and then lose it. I guess we could cache it. That might be a good idea. Let's save it and cache it. But if we cache it, I can't cancel it until we get to the end. Mass set. Nope. Release store clear. That doesn't have it. I'm pretty sure. Oh, I can say set initial. That's what I want. Boom. Hit play. Oh, what? Oh, there's less iteration, so it's running a lot quicker. So that's better already. But I don't know if the friction is going to keep any of these up on the surface. I hope it does, because that'd be really cool. But if not, then eh. Doing a good job there. Doing a good job there. Looking really nice. Oh, it's starting to slide off, which is fine. Not what I want. I want it to stay up there. But if we want these to droop down, which is also something I want, then that would be a thing to do. Now, having said that, we can go and make some extra clones and droop them on the top, which I'll probably do, because this is looking kind of cool. Oh, look at that. Pretty good. Pretty good. Give it a little more time to settle. Oh, that one's... We just got a couple lines that are way behind. Give it just a few more frames. Good enough. Set initial. So that should mean I can rewind, and then yeah, everything's gonna be still there. It'll simulate some more if I need them to. And I think I can delete the tag, although I will put it into a connect object and then make that editable. And now we do have the one in this form. I can undo and get back, and now I've pasted it in again. Yeah, so now I've got this one been made editable, so now it's not calculating anymore. And now, just for fun, just because things are looking good, I'm going to go back to our scene file here, to when we had our cloner, copy that, bring that into this file, and turn it on. And this time I'm going to just say that it is, let's just do a radial, that should be fine. Move that into the air, set that to that. Push those around. Oh, I didn't copy the random factor. My mistake. MoGraph. Random. Scale. Uniform scale. Scale up, scale down. Couple more. I think a little bigger overall would be a good idea. Cool. And now we don't need these to fall very far, so I'm going to make this editable. Let's move it down until it's just barely not touching. Let's steal the cache tag. We don't have any set initial. I'm going to let them all just fall. I'm going to go easy on the drag because those can fall quicker if we want. And I think it's fine. I can hit save and let's hit play. That's even fewer than before, so the calculations should be quick. I didn't lower the iterations, but it should be fine. This still has a really strong friction, so this should be catching those lines quite readily. And this should just do a good job of coating the top of it with some extra lines for us to play with. Now, even stopping it here would be cool because you get these lines draping upward, and that would be cool. I have a lot of stiffness here. There's a lot of stretching going on some of these lines. That's bugging me a little bit. Maybe it's closed or shouldn't be closed or something. I'm not sure. I'm expecting these to swing in more, but they just keep stretching. A little strange. They kind of eventually are. And we got this nice draping on top, which is what I wanted. Come on. Yeah, I wonder if these are where those should close. I think I can just delete that, yeah. Don't close. Yeah, that's where they're closed. So we got a couple of these swinging out. I mean, these are in this new position, so I could just put this spline back on again. I'm going to copy it before I do that. You never know. Rewind, hit play. Yeah, cool. So we just continue the simulation from that point. A couple of those are falling through the small one, but those are sort of leveling themselves out. Yeah, those little drapey ones are taking too long, so I'm just going to select some of them and delete, delete, delete. We'll just let those drape that a little bit. That's fine. All right, cool. So now we got our lines. They're not all perfect. Some of them are like that one. I'd love for that one to have flattened itself out a little bit, but it decided it didn't want to. So away it goes. Oopsie. Grab that. UI. Delete. Cool. So now I would take this and just do some volumes. Just do some fun with volumes. So save on that. Let's go ahead and create a volume builder. We can feed in the spline. Blurp. And something that I do want to point out here that might be fun. So you see I'm feeding that in. An alternative that we have is I could grab a spline, and this spline I'm going to say that should be a spline. It should display the line, and then the spline is based off of the vertex of a source spline, and this will be the source spline. And I can feed that in as into the volume, and in the volume I can go ahead and let's see, density, is that refreshing properly? Spline, width. Oh yeah, this width is the thing. So that controls the width. Yeah. So we need to lower our resolution there. Okay, cool. But now our spline, we now can go to this width slider, and I can drop this down, and we can make this skinnier as they go down. So they can be nice and fat up on the top and get skinnier down there, or the opposite. They can get blobbier as they get near the bottom. That gets a little weird and gooey, soft. So we can have that be pretty fat up there, but then they get drippy down here. Yeah, that's kind of fun. Go to our volume builder, set that down to 1, and now we can click on the spline. We have a density. Let's see, 0.2. Yeah, okay. 1. There we go. That's just going to be creating them all the way through. We'll probably have to do a little bit of smoothing here. So that's one spline. I'm going to make a copy. This spline is going to reference our other spline. Let's see what that gives us. Ooh, look at that. Now this one I think should probably be a little bit more consistent. I mean, I guess it could. I mean, this is the start and the end, so we could make that pretty droopy. Let me turn that off for a second so I can do that. Do that. So it's going to be fat on the ends and then thin down there, but maybe mirroring that. Flip vertically. Oh, that's interesting. Move down here. Move down here. Okay, now we turn the volume builder back on. There we go. They get fatter down on the bottom, and they're skinny up on the top. Tell you the truth, I'm not sure I like that. Might like it better the opposite. Yep, we got that. They're not. These are all pretty fat, but I think everything's gonna look a lot better if I make them skinnier. Yeah. And now if these pass through each other, they should be blobbing properly into each other. And let me think, what are we missing that would be good? I mean, just draping more up on the top would be good. And then maybe making a handful of these spheres. That might be kind of fun. Making a handful of these spheres also part of that volume. So we'll shrink this up. Or, what is it? Middle mouse button, drag left. That one, that one, that one, that one, and that one. Boom. UP to split, delete off the old one. Now we've got this new one. Put that into the volume builder. Now those are going to get blobbed. And now we can go into our volume builder and put in a smoothing layer up on the top. Now this might erase out a bunch of our lines, so we got to be careful or make our lines fatter. Probably make our lines fatter, honestly. What's a nice minimum here that doesn't disappear? Because I want this smoothing. Wow, we have to go quite far before those don't melt into oblivion. And there's a lot of resolution there. I'm going to speed us back up again. Yeah. I'm fine with this being blobbier. 15. Wow, okay. 22. Wow, some of these are getting the skinniness here. It just can't handle them. Now we're getting too blobby. I didn't want to get this blobby. Now, if we do drop our voxel size back down to 1, I think it'll be enough. It's just a lot of calculating. Yeah, now they're connected. So now it's a mess. I mean, it's funny, but it is a mess. I mean, does look like it's interacting with the surface, but man. If we click on the smoothing layer, that's Gaussian. We have our voxel distance. Iterations. We could do 2 iterations, smooth it out more. Yeah, it's better. Let's make our builder. No, not our builder, our mesher. I keep doing that. Builder into the mesher. It's a big old mesh, so probably have to give it a second. Calculating. Volume builder, 50%. Come on, you can do it. Why I put too many subdivisions on the most spline? There we go. It did eventually figure itself out. I'm just gonna make it editable right away. That's fine. That might need to do that entire calculation again, unfortunately. It doesn't seem to have cached. But, oh man, yeah, it's a heck of a mesh. Smoothing. Deformer. Put that in. No stiffness. And there's so dang many subdivisions on that. I don't necessarily think that's going to do much. Yeah, I mean, it's really on the margins here. 55 iterations of smoothing, and we barely see anything visual. But yeah, what a gooey, melty mess we've got here. It's pretty great though. I like it. Blurb. And yeah, just melt. Using the lines to melt them down. There might be other little processes and things we could do that might have sped that up or made it a little bit easier. I don't necessarily think that we did it the necessarily best way possible, but there's definitely some cool little bits there. I'm trying to think if I should save this into the folder because this is going to be so many megs because the mesh is so high. It's going to be like, we don't need to have a 200 meg file in there just with these melty. So I don't think I'm going to actually save this one. But yeah, I'll save it to the computer. I'll just put it into the don't share folder. Not that I don't want to, it's just too big for Dropbox. Yeah, look at that melty stuff. It's pretty great. It's fun. And yeah, we don't get to use hair dynamics like that too often. Let's go ahead and... Yeah, then there's definitely some more things I'd probably want to do. Honestly, I would have liked to have... it was starting to calculate too slow. I would have liked to have taken these spheres and bitten them out of that so that would have had more of a curl on the surface instead of looking like it's intersecting. Could have done that. Honestly, a lot of tapering. Everything being way skinnier and smaller would have been cool, but the meltiness is still pretty good. It definitely feels like it's interacting with our shape overall. But, like these thicker blobs right there, I don't like that as much. I like these skinny ones more. Beer. Nasty. And then you'd subdivide your base mesh. Make that a little smoother. And yeah, the poly count on that. I'm a little scared to do this, but if we were to put the, I'm going to put a displacement on there. Let's put a noise. I just want to see how long it takes to calculate. Okay, not that long. But when it came to like that mushroom that was linked in an earlier question, it's the kind of thing where we could potentially, you model out any shape and then you drop this kind of, you put this kind of noise on top of it. Let's go and scale it up a little, get a little more uniformity to it. Yeah, something like that. And then let's chill it out a little because it's a little strong. So yeah, something like that, and boom, like we've practically got that mushroom shape already. So I don't know what is growing on these spheres, but I wouldn't want to touch it. Yikes. That's pretty great though. And that's all geometry, it's crazy. Rah. With a proper rig, we probably could have made an animation out of that, but I think it's pretty good. Okay, back to the chat. Hey, everybody. This might have stopped updating for me. It does that sometimes. Nope, it seems up to date. Tobias has a Vimeo link. Let's see what you got here. Vimeo, oil and water from Toadstorm. What a great name, Toadstorm. And even it just says gloop. So this is a Houdini animation. Blink. Oh, that's cool. Blink. And then not only, I mean, there's a lot of layers to this, but not only does that blob through, but every one of these has bubbles inside of it that are swirling around. That's crazy and cool. Let me think. So wouldn't want them intersecting each other. Definitely would be some sort of soft body. If it's soft body, it makes me think we have two options. One would be weird. It's something that's in my head. I don't know if it'd be a good idea. The other would be a similar technique we've done one time where we use soft body splines. Some of these tiny bubbles, or we're just not going to go for these tiny ones, like all these little ones. I can only be worried about these big ones. I love the tiny ones. They're definitely a variable that's happening here, but not something we could do there very easily. Yeah, man. Yeah, there's some complexities here. Let's give it a try. Let's make a box. I'm going to make the box. Actually, let's not make a box. Well, we are going to make a box. Actually, yeah, we are going to make a box. Okay, we're making a box. I talked about this at NAB. If we're going to be doing dynamics, if we're using some advanced soft bodies can escape through a surface really easily, but something they can't escape through is a floor. So if we make a floor and we make it a rigid body, and then we put, this works really well, is if we make a cloner and we put it into the cloner and we clone onto an object, and the object is a cube, and we're cloning onto the polygon center, and let's go ahead and rotate these until they're correct orientation. It's probably going to be on P. I'm going to do 90 degrees. So now what we've got is a cube that is surrounded by floors. But what's cool about this is if I scale our cube, T for scale, I'm going to scale it up a little, and let's make it a little shorter. If I were to make that cloner editable, I just want to make sure that the floors are facing the right direction. So let's select, say, that floor. And what direction is it facing? What floor do I have? Oh, I guess Y is up. So it is correct. You see that normal of the floor is facing in. This one is facing that way. This one is facing down. So this is a correct box. I do think we need to make it editable. So we got all these floors, but we don't actually need to see them. They are actually just existing wherever that floor is. What I do want to do, though, is make a copy of our cloner there, just so I can go back to it if I need to, if we change the size of the floor. But in any case, we can make that editable, hide those, and now we've got a bunch of floors that are perfectly trapping something inside of what would visually be this cube. Let's put another display tag on this. We've been doing that a lot today. Hide some lines so we have a box. Now, this box isn't dynamic, but it does represent where our floors actually are. So we need to do some spline tests. I'm going to make an end side, and I'm going to lie it flat on the ground, and let's give it 64 segments. And we'll shrink the radius a little bit. And let's add a simulation soft body on it. Hit play, and it should go flop onto the ground. That's great. So now my first test is, what happens if we inflate this? Actually, we can't inflate this. There's no such thing as inflate. We can't give it pressure. because a spline doesn't have pressure, but it can have a rest length. So if we double the rest length, it's going to make it bigger. You can see it stretching itself out there. So that by itself already pretty cool. Now, things should start getting interesting if we make a second spline. This one I can hit T for scale, shrink it, and let's move it over here. And I do want them to scale up, but maybe not right away. But you can see how we are filling our volume successfully. So we do need to go to our, that doesn't do anything, but let's go to our rest length. And at time of 0, it will be 100%. And then at the time of, actually we'll say for the first 10 frames it's a 0. And then it's got 5 frames to scale up to its 200%. Yeah, so that's enough time for it to fall and settle on the floor and then scale up. Pretty quick. Let's give it some more frames. 10. Floop. And then boom. And they bounce off each other. So that's fine. Working well. So, a couple extra things we should do. Let's go ahead and get rid of the bounce and friction so they can freely slide around. Yeah, better. And now, a couple questions. First of all, if we make another copy of that and put it inside, is it going to be properly trapped inside of it? Hard to tell. Let's scoot it over here. Yeah, actually, it does get trapped inside. I was just curious about that. It doesn't actually help us. So we might have to definitely add some thickness to these. Not necessarily a bad thing. I'm going to give them some margin. So let's go to our, I think with splines we have to use a margin. So I'm going to go and set this up to 10, which should be quite a bit, which should mean that, okay, important variable. The margin cannot be bigger than the distance between any given point on the spline. So if our spline is super subdivided, it doesn't have enough points to handle that. So let's keep that in mind. But this larger thing should be a kind of a minimum distance in which they can touch each other. So that's working well so far. So let's go ahead and make some copies here. Let's make another one there. Let's make another one there, there. Because these are getting bigger, we don't nearly need to fill our space. I'm going to scale that one up a little bit. Go there, copy and paste that one again. Here. Probably go to the top view, see this a little clearer. Copy, paste. Copy, paste. Copy, paste. So that one, and that one probably need some slightly fewer segments. Let's see. Hit play. Blurb. Okay. That's fine. They grow too big, which is just too big for the volume, I think. So let's go ahead and grab all of them. We just go to this keyframe and we say, don't scale up quite that big. Let's just go 155. You know what? Let's give you more frames to do it too. So now they're going to grow. Okay, so you can see that they're eating up their entire space. So that's just, we just have to be fair to them and not make it impossible for them to not grow. So something like that is better. Let's do 30. There we go. That's pretty good. So you can see we are doing a pretty good job of filling up our overall volume. Now we probably actually have quite a few options here because we have the overall thickness. We don't actually need to give these all that much time to fall to the ground. So we could, I guess we'll just show the floors, and then I'm going to grab this one floor and move it just minus 5 from the ground, and then grab the one above it and move it to just plus 5 off the ground. And let's keep in mind our cube would now represent a y of 10. So now they're going to have trouble climbing over each other. So yeah, now that that is happening, let's see if we can make a new spline, if we can fit one in there, copy and paste. Let's see if we can make this force its way through. So we're going to give this spline some really heavy follow position. We're going to give ourselves some more frames. So we're going to hit play. Okay, cool. It doesn't overly fill. So now let's go ahead and go and grab our position, record a keyframe. I'm going to say I want to auto record position. So let's just hit play forward a little bit, and then I'm going to move it. No, we can't move it once it's dynamic. I'm going to delete the dynamics tag. So I'm going to say it should go to there. And then hit play some more. And it should have moved to there. Hit play some more. And it should have moved to there. And then go to the end. And let's just say it's moved its way over here. So, and now I'm going to copy the dynamics tag from one of the other objects. Bloop. Cool. So now let's see, and turn off recording because you can get yourself in trouble if you forget to turn that off. Hit play. Let's see if we get anything. Nothing. Oh, that's because I didn't. This one that I copied didn't have follow position. There we go. Okay, so it's definitely fighting its way through. Blurp. 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 Not bad. Not amazing. Let's see. What are some things that we can or cannot do in this effect? It's not bad. They're filling up the space. They're not very aggressively filling up the space. We could add potentially some stiffness to them. Stiffness, which is going to want them to retain their original blobby shape a little bit more. That actually does seem to have helped significantly. Okay, cool. I also think that we can make them scale up a little bit bigger. So this is going to be really sensitive, so we need to scale it up, but not so much that they start exploding. Oh, nice. Blurp. Not bad, not bad. That's fun. Blurp, 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 blurp. And now, I mean, is there much more to it? The last thing would be, I'm kind of curious about would be if we can get some bubbles going. Haven't saved this yet, a little dangerous. Fighting microbes. Microbes. Oh, try and get some tiny ones. So, actually, you know what I'm kind of inclined to do is let's just make a cloner. Let's put a clone in here. Let's make a hex pattern. I love me some hex patterns. Put it on Y. T for scale. Scale the whole thing way down. That's pretty good, actually. And they're going to, I'm going to tell them not to grow. So we might change it, so I'm going to just keyframe it from 100 to 100. Let's grab our set here and then just make sure they're all fitting. Some of them might intersect, but I'm hoping they just pop out properly. But because everything's so tiny, I do need to tell this that it doesn't have much of a margin. So it's only got a margin of 1 maybe. Still might be too much. Save it. Play. Now the ones that are overlapping, I'm hoping that they work themselves out. Sorta, sorta not. Although, now I think about it, these should only have like 6 points on them or something. Something real small. There. Now they don't take much to calculate. Maybe add more stiffness to them. Ooh, and they do have a follow position. Don't follow position. They can flow around freely. And stiffer. Bing. Yeah, there we go. Nice. So it looks like we just have to make sure that they are not... I do want some margin. What's the biggest margin I can give them? Okay, 3. These all live at about the size of 3. They're only freaking out when they are on the edge. So we just need those to not be on the edge. I'm trying to think if there's any automatic way we could move them off of the edge. No way I can think that guarantees it. We could move the cloner up into the air maybe, and then maybe they'd slide off. What's cool is that the ones that are on the inside are going to be staying on the inside. And the ones that are on the outside should stay on the outside. Look how they're even doing a great job of like forcing their way through. Now, having done all of this, I don't think these all need this big of a margin. Maybe a margin of 2 so we can eat up the space a little bit more. Whoa, that one escaped inside. Okay, maybe, maybe the margin is important. Or the margin might need to be the floors. The floor might need to be, I'm not sure which floor is which, but we should be able to tell by the one that is in the middle from our vertical point of view, that one. So this one should just be, let's say, 2 into the air, and then this one should just be -2 into the air. I'm going to turn off the bubbles for a second because I want to see how small we can make the margin. So yeah, now, okay, so all I did there was pinch in the floors more, and now they can't climb up enough to squeeze past the other ones. So that automatically made that work better. So, but now if we make our bubbles, some of them will be intersecting there. So how do we, I mean, I could just, first of all, we could place them manually. Second of all, we could make a loft and clone onto those. We could possibly use these splines as a source to use a matrix object, or erase them out via some sort of matrix. There's a lot of possibilities. I'm just trying to think of if there's a cool dynamic way, because it's not difficult to delete them out, obviously. I just like the idea. I want to throw a couple of them in there because they're cool. It's a cool addition to the overall setup. So I wish I had a really good way for them to be automatically doing it, but honestly, I cannot think of an automatic-ish way of doing it. Yeah, Pixel is saying push apart effector, but the push apart, these other ones are not clones, so those wouldn't be viewing it. So they could push apart from each other, but they're not clustering up on top of each other. So it's more about the surface that they'd be allowed to go. Like I said, it's not technically something I'm worried about. Like on one level we can just ignore it. On the other, I could make a copy of this, turn one off, make it editable, which is just what I'm going to do for now. And now we could just individually, oh dear, is that one of these clones? Well, apparently these clones were all keyframed. That's dangerous. And I don't think they have follow position on anymore. No. Okay, so now, yeah, so there we go. Now I can just grab them individually and then turn off Y to make that a little easier and just move them off the corners. I mean, it's not like it takes a long time, but I was just trying to think if there's a cool, fun, dynamic way of doing it. Sadly, nothing came to mind. Now I would like to, here's our hero one, and I wonder if we can put a couple in there and if they will do a good job of traveling with it. But this is looking cool, so let's just take a minute to clean these up a little bit. Any obvious ones? That's all the ones I see. Hit play. I only see 2 rogues, that one and that one. Cool. So now let's see what we get. Amebas, go! I missed one more. Whatever. So let's see what our little hero is doing. Bing. I like how they like force they're forcing the scene to like maintain a certain volume, which is pretty great. Like they're filling in all the gaps in between them. So it's actually working incredibly similar to what we were seeing in the Houdini setup. And, we're just in vanilla cinema, so that's pretty cool. Along those lines, I do want to grab a couple of these, and I'm going to make copies of those. And then we'll put those inside again. And this should do a good job of maintaining the volume of that one more. If they're all forced to hang out inside there, it should make it so that it can't squeeze terribly tight on any given point. Although even having said that, there's a lot of possibilities here. Right now we're telling that one it's got a lot of stiffness, but if we told it to not have nearly as much, actually it doesn't have too much stiffness, but let's give it 0 stiffness. So now it's kind of free to blob around a lot more. It does have structure and flexion and all that, so I might shrink those up more. Blurp. But yeah, this should be free to blob its shape around more. especially if we drop our shear and our flexion. Yeah, as soon as we lower our shear and flexion, it can turn into these like really sharp shapes. So we got to be careful with that. Let's go in 11 here, give it a little bit of roundness. But now this one should be free to adapt to its shape a lot more. Let me through. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I like it. We could be making more shapes overall here. We could be doing things that will round these out after the fact. Something I definitely want to throw in here is a particle turbulence. And we'll give it, not too strong, let's give it some scale. And this should just add on, yeah, there's going to be some flow overall. And then we can go pretty high on it just to see what we end up getting. So yeah, so now this turbulence, you can see it's pushing really hard over here, and everything's going to be clustered up over there, and they're all kind of filling in. But it's doing I mean, man, I love using soft body for spline dynamics because you see what a great job it does. Like, look at what a great job it's doing in compressing all of these into their various shapes. And you can clearly see that we could inflate them more or squeeze a lot more into our surface. Like, we could be putting a lot more in here and they'd be forced to blob around properly. And it's just really pretty great. And that one's still fighting to get to its forced position, which it is over there. And then, so this is putting a big old fat turbulence in there. But if I put the scale down smaller, then they should be being affected a little bit more individually, and everything should just kind of ooze around a little bit because it's got some frequency, so it's constantly animating, so everything can push its way around more. I mean, we've got our hero one, and I mean, I like the idea that we can give it this tail that kind of folds over, but at the same time, a little stiffness in there to keep it forced into its overall shape. And then just to throw it out there, how important it is for this overall shape. If I grab all of these, if I give these all 0 stiffness, I think you're going to see them like crumpling a lot more. So they should be able to stretch and deform into like these really flat, stretchy, blobby shapes, which, that could be cool. That could be completely valid. That's stylistically what you want it to do. But the more stiffness you put in there, up to, like, if we can go up to 1, then it's going to be trying to maintain their original shape a little bit. So they can definitely deform and squish, but you see they're not stretching and going so flat. So you get those options. I mean, this could probably go up to like 11, and now they're really forcefully trying to maintain their original shape. So you got a lot of stylistic choice here. Blah, 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 blah. Super fun. I love it. Now, we didn't set that up for rendering or anything, but that's pretty cool. I like it. Murray, what's going on? Thanks for coming and hanging out with us. And yeah, spline, like the dynamics tag on splines is so great. The best spline dynamics in cinema are soft body splines. The only problem is that they're a pain in the butt to attach a line to a particular point. That's really tough. You can, and it's a little twitchy though. But yeah, I'm digging it. Like, even just you could go and run some sketch and tune renders on here and go incredibly fast. I'd want to put some more of these like tiny, even smaller in there. The sketch and tune could round them out more. Filling these volumes up with even more of these shapes could be really fun. Well, we're actually pretty good on time here. I'm gonna chat with the chat a little bit, but I don't know if I'm gonna make another question. I end up getting pretty fuzzy after the 2 hours. Nuva, what's going on? Actually, you know what? Let's try and tackle one more question if you got one more quick one. So in the quick meantime, if you're hanging out, thank you so much for coming in. Let me do this. Thank you guys so much for coming, hanging out. I could not do this without your questions. At the same time, I want to say that I could not do this without your support on Patreon. That is super important to me, being able to continue doing all of this cool free stuff. So if you're not already, make sure you go head over to Rocket Lasso on Patreon. You could also just go to my home, rocketlasso.com. You can find a link there as well. If you're on Twitch, there's a link down below. You don't have to do it. It's super appreciated if you do. There's all these different levels. You can get early access to all the videos. You can get a bonus live stream that's going to be happening tomorrow. It happens every Thursday. And you can get all the scene files. So it's just really fun, a cool way of getting some of the stuff a little bit early, and mostly it's just helping me keep this going and being able to make cool, fun stuff and share it with everybody. So I appreciate that. But let's get one more question going. Thank you, everybody. Crossfader has one. Oh yeah, and by the way, if you weren't here at the very beginning, there's a brand new contest, a little chain project. It's not a contest; it's a cooperative thing, but a new chain project happening. So go to rocketlassoslack.com. Crossfader put a link in there, so make sure you head over to that to join in on that. Crossfader has this link, or Andrew is back again. I'm gonna try the Crossfader link first because I saw that one, and then if not, we'll see what Andrew's rig was overall. Oh, interesting. Very dark. A little difficult to see, especially with some daylight streaming in next to me. But we got all these nice little stripes traveling around this torus shape, and these spheres are constantly traveling around, and they each have a little tail that's digging into the surface. This is made by Motion Operators. A loop made in, it says made with the updated MOPS, which means this is Houdini. MOPS and SOPs and all those fun things are Houdini. So, yeah, that is doing a thing. I mean, the tricky part with this is that we have too many ways we might be able to do it. What, like, man, there's a lot of different possibilities. I mean, one immediate one that pops in the mind would be, let's see. The torus is good because I'm going to do a cylinder just because I don't want to use literally the same shape. I'm going to turn off caps because we don't need them. Let's go ahead and give ourselves a bunch of subdivisions. Let's go ahead and make, I don't know, 80? So now we got all these subdivisions. But one immediate way that pops to mind would be, let's just make a circle for us to travel around. Set the same radius. Actually, I guess the radius is 50. Radius of 50, and now we could make a sphere, and we'll set that to an icosahedron. We'll make that down to 10, and I will right click on it. We'll add a Cinema 4D, align to spline. It's here somewhere. Align the spline, feed it the spline. We got our position. Let's rewind. I'm going to keyframe, fast forward, 100, record. Sphere is still way too big. Let's drop that down to 5. 5 is pretty big still. 3. Well, I mean, I guess in their example it was pretty small, but let's go a little bigger. So now we've got that. In fact, you know, I'm gonna make the circle one bigger. Bink, just one little higher. Now we'll go into our cylinder, and I'm going to give it a simulation. No, not simulation. We're gonna give it a deformer. We're going to use the surface. Nope, not surface. The collision. Where's the collision deformer? There it is. Collision deformer. Bink. All right, so we got the collision. And now this is going to solve when it intersects. It's going to intersect when it hits a sphere. And now you can see, boom, we get that nice little divot happening anywhere that travels around. Let's make it so that this is linear. I'm going to select both keyframes, put it to linear interpolation. So that's going to be traveling around. And now under collision, we have under the object, there is restore shape, and it's set to 100%. I'm going to set it to 25%. So now, okay, there's a little bit of a tail. Apparently that's stronger than I thought it was. Okay, so now I put down to 5. Let's put down to 2. So there you go. Now you can see that it's deforming the shape and then slowly restoring it back to its previous glory. So there you go. That is one possible way to do it. I might give that a few extra rotations around. Let's do 64, a little better. It might be a little confused not knowing what orientation to push it. So yeah, I'll pull that out a little bit. And also there's the interpolation. If I'm traveling around the whole shape too quickly, it doesn't have a chance to collide equally with every shape. So the speed that this is traveling around might be a variable as well. So if we were to hit control, actually let's just double the timeline, 180. And if we grab our second keyframe here and jump that also up to 180, then this should travel around slower, and because it's going slower, we should get better consistency on the way that is traveling around. So that is one way. Let me think. Man, there's so many different possible ways. We could be feeding it proximal. We could be feeding particles that are drifting away slowly. Actually, another fun one. This one might actually work a little bit better than this one. An alternative way. Let's save this. Trails in the surface. Okay, so now in this one, we're going to make a MoGraph plane effector and feed that in. And this is going to be a point deformer. And it is going to affect the position, but it's going to push it on, not on X, on Z. So there you go. Now you can see it's deforming the entire shape in by whatever amount. So I'm going to say it should deform it in by -5. But it shouldn't do that everywhere. It should only do it in some places. And the places it should go are wherever the sphere is. So the sphere is being calculated by its individual points, which is fine. We also say its volume or its surface. Honestly, this would probably even calculate even better if we just made it a null. So I'm going to make a null, and then put that into the null, and put that into the null, and then zero out the sphere to make sure it's still a parent. So now, in the plane, let's not use that. Let's use the null. Oh, wait. Is the null not a... Oh, you can't... Okay, interesting. I can't drag in a null. So let's just drive the sphere directly again. And the actual alternative here would be to make a very mathematically clean spherical fall-off. And that will be a child of our actual sphere. A lot of different ways to do it, like I said. So now I'm going to make the inner fall off a little bigger, make the overall thing smaller, like that, like so. And now that should be pushing in the surface. So if we hit play, it should be constantly pushing in the surface. You even see that little bit of similar twitchiness. It's a little similar twitchiness as what we were seeing for subdivisions on the collision deformer. The part that's thrown... Oh, wait. I made the circle a little bit smaller. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. That's better now. So now we're traveling right along the surface. And it's still clean. So you can see we're traveling around. But where this, of course, gets interesting is in the spherical field, we can say... Actually, in the plane deformer, we say we add a decay. So now the decay is, in a very similar way to the collider, is fading, slowly fading back. So if I crank this up higher, we should be digging this really big trough, and it's going to very slowly fade away. So we are traveling around 180. We just need to find kind of the sweet spot here for how long we want that to take to deform back into its original position, and that seems pretty good. If we added, and that just goes straight up to the scale of this overall, and it should just continue to work and loop and do everything we want it to. And I guess the bigger point is, or not the bigger point, but something that we were seeing on the overall effect before was that there's a very complicated, cool shape traveling along it where there's all these lines. But we can do that I think we can do that in a pretty straightforward way here. Let me think of what the best way to do it would be. We can use a shader effector. That might be the easiest way, but is there a more interesting way? Not that I can super specifically think of. If I make a shader field, and I set to normal, and let's feed it. We could do a lot of things. We could do a gradient. We could do a noise. The most straightforward will probably be a pattern. Some sort of grid. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Tiles. That's what I'm thinking. So if we do lines, bing, now we get these stripes. And now this is better in black and white. So I think we want all these to be white. It's a little bit of the inverse of what we want. If we pause it, we can actually see the lines. But now as we add thicker grout, so we can start getting these lines. Now we don't have that big of a subdivision here, but that's actually pretty nice and pretty consistent. So, okay, that looks cool. So now if we are traveling around in the correct spot, which is right down the middle of that stripe, pretty much exactly what I want, now we just go back into our plane effector and start combining these in slightly more interesting ways. So that is set to normal, and this is normal, but if I set that to multiply, I guess that might make sense. Maybe I set it to not multiply, but add? Okay. So now we're adding to it, and now that is kind of erasing that out like that. And now we put our decay back on the top. So now, as that travels around, it should be erasing out part of that stripe and feeding it back through. Now, if we had more subdivisions here, then I think the effect would just start getting even kind of cooler and cleaner. Like I can add on more subdivisions, and we can go into our shader and feed it more of these. We can grab our global scale and go 50, and now you can see we've got twice as many of these stripes, and we could just start layering up more and more and more of them, getting better or smoother transitions. Different shapes are going to be it's funny the decay is making it transition in slowly as I'm doing little tweaks on here. It's quite I thought these would be a little smoother, but they're quite sharp in the way that they're transitioning. So that bit's interesting. But yeah, now you can see it's going to travel around. Turn on our decay again. Boom. And now it should be erasing out that line pretty well, and then it comes back again. Maybe even slow that down. And of course, if this entire thing wasn't a subdivision surface, we only need one layer of subdivision. That should do a pretty nice job of erasing that line out temporarily. And if we had a whole bunch of those traveling around, then those could be each doing their own individual thing. In fact, I mean, it would be how do you make a bunch of them spin? Because that's rotating around via that. But that's one clone, spherical fall off. I'm trying to think of a cool way of doing the entire effect, a bunch of them. I'm not sure, to tell you the truth. If I make a cloner and I make it a grid and I make it 1 by 1, and then I don't know how many that is, let's say 16. So I got 16 spheres, and now, oh boy. I wanted to randomly spread them around, but how do you do that? What I was going to do is not going to work at all. So many ways of approaching it. I want to try and make a whole series of these random stripes around and drive it via a cloner. If it was linear, but linear is not radial. Radial, there's an offset on a radial. I never use that. What does it do? Does it push it up? No, that just spins it. Start angle, end angle, but there's no height. But, oh, I have an idea. Okay, so we do that, and let's go ahead and make 16 of them. And then we will feed it a MoGraph step effector. Yeah, step effector. And it's not going to affect the step, but it is going to affect our height. So now we can say this should go up 200. And there we go. Very nice. So it's pushing them up 200. This is not linear, so we will make it linear. And now we start our cloner off at negative 100. Boom. And now we've got a series of those traveled all around. But what's cool is I can say I want a offset. There's no rate, which is, no, there's no rate. I thought there was a rate here, but there's not a rate, but that's fine because we just keyframe this. Can we go above 360? Yeah, okay. So we've set a random variation in here. We can do a 50% random variation, and then we just keyframe our offset. So I guess we'll start at 100, so it looks random already. Nah, we'll start at 1,000, so it looks very random. So there's our random offset. We'll go forward, and now how much do we want to travel? Let's just do that. Seems okay. I guess that's a nice clean 2,000. Record that. If we want it to be linear, we can. It's not looping, but make that linear so that those should all be traveling around and at different speeds. So now that becomes our source geometry. I don't think our spherical field will actually do anything. So we go into our plane effector and we save this as another version. And we feed in the entire cloner. And I'm going to feed it as a MoGraph object. Yes, definitely. And with it being fed as a MoGraph object, the radius is way too big. 5. Constant update mode. Where's the effect? I'm not seeing it do anything. All right, fine. We will not feed it as a cloner. Let's feed it as points. There we go. Points are acknowledging. So now we have a point radius. Set that to whatever we want. That's a little big, but that's fine. Turn on normal, and now we get our trail. And then we just set our normal back to add. And that should be erasing out those individual lines. And now we've got a random pattern of these traveling around. These are not perfectly aligned. I don't know how many of these stripes there are traveling up and down it. I mean, we could find out technically. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. That's an odd number. 21. So we need 21 of these. Is that the idea? Yeah, perfect. Now 21 of them exactly line up with the lines, so they should be very perfectly erasing out that surface. Inside of the plane effector, we have the primary control we have is just affecting this radius. So if I make that a little bit bigger, we can erase out the lines more quickly. The decay, because we got so many of them, I think the decay can be a little quicker. And there we go. I guess I made it a little big because it's affecting the lines that are outside of it, so gotta be careful. Of course, even this has a remap, so we grab the inner and pull that in. Yeah, there we go, that's better. Now the radius doesn't need to be nearly as big because we only want it really affecting the one line. There we go, very nice. Yeah, there you go. Random spheres traveling around, randomly erasing out each little section. In theory, this could have also, right now we're erasing out the trails. Having said that, these could have been drawing on the trails as well, and that would be equally, if not perhaps even cooler. Where, yeah, these could be pulling out the trail and constantly refreshing it instead of constantly kind of erasing it out and then losing it. It's just half dozen of one. But there we go. Looking pretty cool. Okay, cool. Well, we have shot right to the almost 4:30 mark, so we got a bonus almost half hour in there. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming and hanging out. Sorry for the early technical troubles. It's going to make me a little more hesitant to unplug certain things. Yeah, let's see. Anything else? No, that should cover it. Thank you so much, everybody. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. See you then. Toodaloo. Ciao.